everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a great spring. I know it's been some strange weather. We've had some cold, we've had some rain, and perhaps things aren't growing the way that you had anticipated. But today I do want to share with you some things that are growing and some things that you can incorporate into your overall diet so you can promote some health and wellness. And of course, we're talking about health and wellness in the garden with Des Moines Botanical Gardens. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some things that you might already have in your garden, some things that you might want to incorporate. Last episode, we talked about what are some things that you might want to plant based on what are the things that you were concerned about as far as your personal health and how you want to better that. So today I'm going to talk about what might be growing in your garden and some things that you might have planted last time. And then also I want to share with you some things that, of course, you may know that I'm of Indian descent, Indian heritage. And so I want to talk a little bit about some things that are used in Indian cooking that perhaps you, or Asian cooking that perhaps you don't use on a regular basis, and that you might want to consider adding to your garden, growing in your garden, and then including your diet and the health benefits for that. So just a really quick, I want to kind of cover what we're going to go over today, and then we'll get started. So many times people always ask me about turmeric and ginger because that has lately in the last several years been really brought out by different health advocates, by different cooking shows and that type of thing. So people always talk to me about, well, can I plant ginger? Can I plant turmeric? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how to do that. And then I'll talk about, like I said, some of the things that might be growing in your garden. Chives are probably growing in your garden right now, rhubarb. Some other things might be mint, and then talk a little bit about, like I said, some of the things that we use in Asian cooking. So I'll mention those as well and how you can grow those if you're interested. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, like I said, we're going to talk about turmeric and ginger. Those, of course, have lots of health benefits. People know that turmeric is anti-inflammatory, it's antibacterial, lots of things for your that are good for your health. Ginger also is really good, of course, for upset stomachs. A lot of people, will drink ginger tea when they have an upset stomach. How to incorporate that into your diet and be able to include that in different ways. And of course, if you're growing your own, how you can do that. Now, one thing I do want to mention that ginger and turmeric, of course, grow naturally in warm areas that are warm and hot all the time. So, or most of the time, of course, not like here in Iowa. So how will you be able to grow it here? From when you first plant it, it could take up to 10 months for you to be ready to harvest it. So you're really going to have to place the turmeric and ginger into some kind of pot, and you want to have a good mix. You want to make sure that the soil is very fertile, it's loose, and then you'll want to plant your ginger in that type in a pot. Now, when you're selecting, of course, ginger and turmeric are rhizomes, so they will get little roots on them, but you're planting the rhizome, okay? So when you're looking for which ones to plant, and you can get these in a lot of health food stores. I know that even sometimes the regular grocery stores carry them. So you want to look for ones that have what people call eyes, okay? So little notches that look like that they're going to grow, and you want to select those. Now, a lot of times people will soak these overnight just because many times the grocery stores will put some kind of spray on them to keep them actually from sprouting. So you might want to consider soaking them. Sometimes that's not necessary, but you could do that to make sure that there's no kind of a coating on them, and then they'll be ready to plant. So you make sure that they have those little eyes, and you want to just, the ginger is kind of like if you've ever planted iris bulbs. They kind of stay like on the surface of the soil, but when you plant these, you want to put them in a little bit down into the soil and make sure that they're just lightly covered. And then it'll depending especially on the weather. If you have nice hot humid conditions, of course they'll sprout sooner than if the conditions are cooler, but it could take up to a couple weeks before you really see anything really growing on them. And like I said, it could be up to 10 months before it's actually really ready to harvest. And when we get to that point, we'll talk a little bit about that. But so that's a way that you can grow turmeric and the way that you can grow ginger, because a lot of times people will ask you about that because there's so many good things about it. But you want to make sure, again, you pick the ones that have little nodules or little eyes on them. Set them in your soil. So the same thing you do with the ginger that you do with the turmeric. So, and then hopefully within the couple weeks or so, you'll see some growth. So that's talking a little bit about ginger and turmeric. And like I said, so many health benefits for those things. And I will include a link that you can access to learn a little bit more about ginger, a little bit more about the history of it, planting, harvesting, those types of things. Okay, so moving along, I want to talk a little bit about the garlic greens. So of course, it's garlic is growing right now in the garden, and so are chives, and so those are something that you can, again, have lots of health benefits and that you can start harvesting and you can use. So a couple things I want to say about the garlic. You know, for most of you, if you've had garlic or if you planted it last fall, you'll see there's lots of little shoots that are coming up. Now, I like to kind of thin those shoots out because I want to, when I do harvest it, I want to have nice big bulbs. So I don't want them to be so crowded all together. So I want to thin them out. So you kind of get a double benefit that way. So then in the fall, you'll have another nice big bulbs. And we'll talk a little bit about the scapes too, when I was hoping that they'd be ready by now, but they're not ready. So we'll have to discuss that in the next segment. But anyway, so as you're thinning your garlic greens, you can go ahead and just dig those out. And these are wonderful to just chop up, and you can add them to salads, you can saute them up, you can put them in soups and pasta, you can eat them in rice, all sorts of different ways. So it's wonderful. Just go out there and kind of dig them up, kind of, so then you can have room so that the other ones can grow nice and big, and you can actually use these for all the health benefits that they offer as well. So the garlic greens are great for that. Chives is another thing that I like to combine the garlic greens with the chives. And when you pick the chives, of course, you know, these are the flowers part, but you want to pick the other parts that are growing. And you can just go out there and you can either just dig up a little segment of them, or you can actually just cut them at the base and use those portions of it. So it's a really nice thing that I like to do is you can chop up the chives, chop up the garlic greens. If you want to add a little basil to it, you can add a little basil, oregano, whatever other herbs that you might have growing. Remember, we talked about how herbs are very high in vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin K. So incorporate those into your diet, and it's really good for your health. You can chop those up. You can make a garlic herb butter. You can just saute them in a little bit of olive oil and add them to all sorts of things. You can also dry them, but I really would encourage you to try to eat them fresh. Chop them up fresh, add them to salads. And sometimes people are like, well, I don't like the strong flavor of the garlic or the chives, it's too strong. So a really good way to mellow that out is to add a little bit of salt. Oh, chop them up, add a little bit of salt, add a little bit, any kind of acid. So like lime juice, lemon juice, you could use apple cider vinegar, even a little bit of regular vinegar, and let it just sit for a little while. And then that'll take some of the bite out if you don't like that really strong. And then you can just add it fresh to your salads on top of your roasted potatoes. That's really good as well. So a wonderful way to use those things that are very healthy for you and that are probably growing in your garden right now. So great way to do that. One other thing I want to talk about is lemongrass. A lot of people ask me about lemongrass as well. And what I do with lemongrass is, again, it's one of those things that doesn't naturally would grow all year round here because we don't have the weather to sustain that. So what I like to do is, and what I did last fall, of course, was as I dug it up, I put it in a pot. I add some mint in this too. So then I bring it over the winter and I overwinter it. And then in the spring, take it back out. I can just dig those up and plant them in my herb garden and use those. Now, for those of you who are just getting started with lemongrass and you're wondering, oh, well, how can I plant it? So it's so easy. All you have to do is, when you can get lemongrass at a lot of the grocery stores, and what you do is when you'll just get like this stalk portion of it, and what you do is you just chop it off here, and then you can use that top part, and then you just place it in a little jar of water, and you'll see, could be a few days if you have it like in a nice warm sunny window, or it could maybe be up to a week, and you'll see that it'll start having roots. And then you just take this whole stalk and you stick it into your garden or stick it into a pot, and then it will grow just like this, and it'll spread too. So it's very easy to do. It's just like celery. So I don't know if any of you ever try celery, but that's the same kind of thing, where you chop off the top and then you place it in some water, and then it'll just start growing like this, and then it'll get roots in this, and then you can just plant that in your garden. So the lemongrass is similar to like those of you that have done that with celery before. So that's one thing that I would try to encourage you to try. So lemongrass contains inflammation-fighting compounds, and actually in some parts of the world, they use lemongrass. What they do is they chew on it, and it's very fibrous, of course, and it helps to clean their teeth. So it takes off the debris off their teeth and gives them a fresh lemony breath. So lemongrass is used in lots of different ways, not just in cooking, not just in tea, but for health. And like I said, it has lots of inflammation fighting compounds, so it's very good for that. One other thing I want to talk about that's probably growing in your gardens now is rhubarb. So I have a bunch of rhubarb growing in my garden, and I just went out and picked some earlier today, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about rhubarb. So, many times people don't, they maybe have known rhubarb for many years, but really weren't really sure, well, is this something that's really good for me, or is this, some people either like it or they don't like it, but you can use it in savory ways. You can use it, a lot of times people think of using it in pies, so pies or bars or that kind of thing, but you can use it in a savory way. You can also use it in the desserts as well. So of course, when we talk about rhubarb, so rhubarb is high in fiber, and one of the other things that it's very high in is vitamin K1. So vitamin K has a lot of vitamin K, so it's very healthy for you in that way. But of course, when you pick rhubarb, you want to make sure that you discard the tops, because remember, the leaves are not for consumption. So those are, if you want to say poisonous or what, but they are not for consumption. So you want to make sure that you go ahead and chop those off, throw them in your compost pile, and then you'll be ready to go. So when you pick the stalks, you want to make sure you pick, if you pick when they're nice and red like this, and you pick the stalks. Now when you are harvesting, if you've just planted rhubarb, you want to wait a few years for it to get established before you actually start harvesting it. For those of you who have a rhubarb patch, or if you can have a friend who has some, there's always a lot of rhubarb, I'm sure that they'd be willing to share with you. So you want to get some nice big stalks that are turning red, and then go ahead and pick them. And you can chop this up, and like I said, you can use it, if you want to peel it, you can peel it, or just chop it up like that, making different types of bars or pies. Or you can also chop it up and saute it up and add it to stir fry. You can add it to, like if you're making a fried rice dish. So all different kinds of things. You can, like I said, you can use it because it adds that tang, and it adds kind of like a little kick to it. And if you don't saute it for too long, it'll still have a little bit of that crunch as well. So very, very versatile, actually. I think people just think of, strawberry rhubarb pie. You can make just last night, in fact, I made a rhubarb salsa, and I'll include a link for that as well. It's how to make a rhubarb salsa. And you can utilize, so think of all the things that are growing now and how you can utilize them. So I always encourage people to use the things that are in season. Consume the things that are in season. They're going to be the freshest, they're going to have the most benefits, and they're going to be the best for your body at that time. So these are the things that are growing right now and that are readily available if you have a garden, or things that you can find maybe from people that your neighbors, that kind of stuff. Maybe your neighbor has something, you have something, you can kind of share that. So what I was saying about the rhubarb salsa, so utilize the things that you have. So I made the rhubarb salsa, so I have, of course, rhubarbs in season, the garlic greens, the chives, mint, or if you have some cilantro growing, I have some cilantro growing also in my herb garden. So chopping all that up and mixing that together. If you have some peppers, you can toss that in, and you can make a rhubarb salsa using almost all the things that are growing now in your garden. So great way to get all those health benefits by just utilizing what you have that's growing readily right now. So a great thing to use. The other thing you can do, of course, with the rhubarb, like I said, the rhubarb salsa, and we were talking about the pies, you can make a rhubarb chutney. Another thing that I like to do with it is I like to boil it down with just some raw sugar and make a simple syrup, and I love to use that for adding to iced tea, or if you boil it down thick enough, you can put that over pancakes or waffles. It's just like a healthy syrup that you made from not healthy because you got all the sugar in it, but healthy in the sense that it does have the rhubarb in it, and you're utilizing the things from your garden. You could, if you wanted to make like a thick And if you want to make like a thick syrup, you could also boil it down and then kind of puree it. So it's more like a kind of like, you know, you think of applesauce, but it would be like a rhubarb sauce. So that's a wonderful thing to do as well. When I boil it down and make the rhubarb syrup, I'll a lot of times save the pulp and then use that like an applesauce and add it to muffins or add it to different desserts that I'm making. So great way to use all the different parts of the rhubarb. So a couple of the things that I want to talk about, like I mentioned, you know, of course the mint, I mentioned that as well. And then I wanted to share with you some of the things, like I said, that we use in Asian cooking. So one of the things I have here, this is the curry. It's a curry leaf. And a lot of times people say, oh, is that what curry powder is made with a curry leaf? And not necessarily. Actually, curry powder is just a mix of all different types of herbs. And one of the herbs that, or one of the spices that sometimes curry powders will have, will be fenugreek. And I want to talk a little bit about fenugreek. So fenugreek, we call it methi, and you can use, I started some from seed, and you can use the greens. Really good to just toss in with rice, if you're making breads, all sorts of ways that you can use the fenugreek. But then the seeds are actually roasted and used as part of a curry powder mix. The curry leaf is also added to different curries, but that's, when we think of a curry powder, that's not necessarily what the ingredients of it is. But the curry leaf also has lots of medicinal value, and again, you can't leave it outside all winter long, so I put it in a pot and I bring it in. But now it's ready to go outside, so I brought the pot out and I'll let it harden up a little bit, and then I'll be putting that in my herb garden as well. But that's, you know, some of these things maybe you can't find them very easily around here, so sometimes you can get them at, you know, Asian plant sales or from other Asian people, because these do spread, and then I know that I got this from a friend too, so they spread and then people are really happy to share them. So those are some of the things that we use. Of course, cilantro is another one that's used a lot in Asian cooking, and so that's something that we'll incorporate with all these other things. And then, of course, the cilantro I mentioned, the greens are good because you have those vitamins, and then also once it goes to seed, and again, it goes to seed quickly. I talked about this last time. So cilantro is one of those things that it's not like basil where you can just keep clipping it to encourage more and more growth. It will quickly go to seed, and so you harvest what you need to harvest, and then you can save those seeds and then replant them, so then you continuously have the cilantro throughout the season. So, and then you can mix all those things to make a different, you can use, I mentioned mustard last time as well. So mustard greens are right now also in season, and have those coming up in the garden. Kale you might be having some kale come up, spinach come up, some other greens, arugula. So many times people talk about green powders, and so this is a good time when all these greens are tender and they are in abundance. This is a great time, if you like the green powder, to make up some green powder. So definitely eat the greens fresh, because you're going to get the most benefit from them. But if you have a large abundance of these greens and you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do with all these? You can dehydrate. You can make a mix. So you can add the mustard greens, you can add the spinach, you can add the kale, you can add different herbs to it as well. So if you're making a savory, like if you're going to add it to soups, or if you're going to mix, add it to your eggs, that time you can make a savory mix with all the greens and add maybe some parsley, some basil, whatever, some chives, some garlic. So whatever greens that you have readily available right now, mix that up with, you can dehydrate if you have a dehydrator, or you can stick it in your oven on the very lowest setting with the oven door cracked, and then monitor that, and then just grind it up, and then keep it in a dry, cool place, and you can mix that up. If you want to make if you're going to use your greens for like smoothies, or so you don't want to have it savory, you want to have it more something that's going to be not savory, then you could add, along with your greens, you can add lemon balm, you can add mint, you could add the lemongrass, and then you can just take a couple teaspoons of that and add that to your smoothies, or mix that up with to make green shakes, or whatever the case might be. So all those things that are really healthy for you, again, you want to try to eat them fresh, but if you have a large abundance and you want to save some, dehydrating them is a great way to do that. So I hope that you learned some new things today, and I hope I encourage you to grow some new things. It's one thing I want to mention about, if you are going to grow fenugreek, if you are going to grow some of those other spices, a lot of times if you soak the seeds first overnight and then plant them, then they'll grow quicker, and more of them will usually germinate. So that's a good way to, if you want to get started on that, if you haven't already started to do that. We're supposed to be getting warm here soon, so I think once you plant these things, take them outside, the heat and some of the warm weather we're going to be getting will help get these things all going, and so you should have all these coming up soon. And then again, too, the turmeric and the ginger too needs a lot of heat to get it going, so this is a good time to start that if you haven't already done so. Okay, well, I hope I gave you some inspiration and give you some things that you can try, and then the next time we get together, we can talk about some ways how you can mix some of these things and pair some of these things together to have some optimal, sometimes some of the things that you take, you want to make sure you combine them with other things so that your body can absorb them better and they can work better together. So we'll talk about that. So I'm going to provide a bunch of links that you can check out if you want to learn more about the health benefits of lemongrass, if you want to learn about some fenugreek, if you want to learn about ginger, rhubarb. You can check out those links, and it'll give you some more specific guidelines on planting, about the benefits of them, and there's some good recipes too, so you can check out the recipes, because if you're like, oh, I've never made rhubarb salsa or rhubarb chutney, what are the things they need to add to that? So those are some things that you can check out in the links and see how that goes for you. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, happy gardening.